to invite Ms. Chetna Munshi, who is the Head of Global Compliances and DI at Ericsson Global India. Giving a brief, she is a strategic thinker with an entrepreneurial blend of mind, offering 20 plus years of experience in steering learning and development, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and other transformation projects aimed at competency and leadership development to achieve ROI and operational goals. With that note, please welcome Ms. Chetna with a huge round of applause.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope the tea, coffee break has done the wonders and everybody is back quite energized, right? Okay, so I think till now what we have seen in the session so far has been more around the platforms we have been using in different organizations across L&D. And now we will kind of shift it on the other side of the table and see from an organization standpoint, what are some of the things, particularly with respect to artificial intelligence, which is AI, automation, and maybe we won't limit it to just AI and automation. We'll get into the other spaces as well as like VR, AR and stuff. So basically, how does technology and the various options that are available within that, how do we leverage it from an L&D standpoint? So all of us here, I'm sure, are practitioners within L&D in some shape and form. And I myself have been associated with L&D for 2+ decades. So let's kind of look at what are some of the things, and I will give references to some of the things we have been doing in Ericsson, which is my current organization, and maybe give references to what is available in the market and what are some of the things we can look at from a best practice standpoint. And what I'll also try and do is, depending upon how much time we have, let's try and see if we can take some questions as well at the end. I don't think we need to kind of, stress how important this is. The only thing which I take away majorly from what this quote is saying is that whatever you might have done maybe a year back, a couple of months back in terms of your practice, in terms of your learning, unless and until you keep revisiting that and reevaluating that to see how relevant is that to my current reality. My business, as we all know, is always dynamically changing. So what was the challenge yesterday? There would be a new challenge, which is an L&D team I would be given to work on. So if I look at that as my North Star and then say, okay, what worked earlier, is there any change that I need to make in my strategy, in my response to working on that strategy? I think we are good. So that's what I would kind of always say, reevaluate and constantly revise what your response to a particular business challenge that is thrown at you constantly should be. I've tried to kind of keep the flow of the presentation very, very simple. We'll start with what are some of the enablers? Enablers to technology, enablers to what is happening around in the market, and we'll see some of the facts that we are thrown. You go to internet, you go to any of the L&D gurus or talent gurus, be it George Bertrand, be it Korn Ferry, and be the other organizations. What we see here is we are talking about, organizations facing what we are calling reskilling emergency. Now, why do we say that? We've seen in the earlier sessions that there's a huge chunk of talent which requires reskilling, and we know the reasons, and we know we're all facing that, so I don't need to kind of elaborate on that. So that is one reality we need to keep in mind. We also know, and this is 2022 already, so this was an article I picked up from maybe 2018, where we are saying that at least 42% of the core skills which are required to perform any job will be changing. We've already seen that happening. I think it'll be actually much more than 42% as we speak. And the pace at which these changes are expected And the outcome of that change is expected is also changing. It is accelerating as we speak. There's been a full session around hybrid workplace, so I will not really obviously talk more about that, but hybrid workplace is a reality for all of us. Raise your hands if you're working for an organization where you still do not have a hybrid work environment. If you do not have. Okay, so maybe it's what, 10% of the people sitting here? Which means at least 85 to 90% of the organizations that we are currently a part of has this as a reality. Now, because we have a hybrid workplace, what we used to be doing pre-pandemic has completely turned, right? How we operate, how we are expected to perform, how we are expected to evaluate, how we are expected to roll out. I mean, everything has really taken a shift. And lastly, the LinkedIn Workplace Report actually says that almost all the organizations have increased their L&D spending by at least 60%. I think there was an era, we always talked about budget constraints. We still have that as an issue. But I think the reality today is that as L&D leaders, if we have a good business proposition to take to our leaders, most likely than not, they will at least listen to what you are about to say. How you convince them, or if you are able to convince them, obviously is a different discussion. But at least there is more appetite to listening to what you have to say from an L&D standpoint. Now, if we were to look at all these things, what is the common theme that is emerging from here? Any guesses? Focus on the, the words that are in yellow here. What do you see as a theme here? Absolutely. Anybody else? Evolution. Let me make it simple. Right? So we have all the good signs for a perfect storm to happen. What kind of a storm are we talking about here? Again, let me revisit what those things that we spoke about. We have a reskilling emergency, we are talking about a hybrid workplace, pace of change, skills changing, and we have increased L&D spending. Because all this is already available and is already happening as we speak, what's the outcome of all this? The outcome is we are talking about investing more in automation. We are talking about investing more in tools which are around AI, VR, AR. Let me ask another question. How many of you sitting here have been using AI? I'm not even getting into automation. I think that's a given. Everybody is using it. But if I talk about AI, VR, AR, which is virtual reality, augmented reality, we also have something called metaverse. But how many people have explored that? How many people have maybe taken baby steps in that? Anybody raise hands if you've done some kind of a exploration in that area? Some of you. Good. Now, what I see here, and on the rest of the slides, what we'll be really talking about is it's very easy to get overwhelmed in all the jazz and all the definitions and all the terminologies here. But what the crux is, how? How do you go about it? You'll get a lot of material to read around why you should use it. I'm not even getting there, right? But I think what is important for all of you to either just started your journey in that, or you've kind of walked a few steps, maybe got some successes and maybe faced some challenges. What are some of the things I have done, or the organization, which is Ericsson, where I'm currently working, has done in the space that I am a part of? And what have been some of the learnings there? Because I think that is what hopefully should help you to walk that, the journey as we speak. So first reality is we have a perfect storm. So we have a storm where probably this is the best time to get into automation, AI, VR, and all the associated technologies and that space. The second reality is we have multiple sources of talent which were probably not available to us pre-pandemic, right? And the tasks earlier, we used to have, now we really have broken them down into job. What is the job a particular person is expected to do? Forget about the task, but break it down into a deliverable, which is a job, right? And job then, a series of jobs, a series of activities is what we say gets clubbed into a task. And the kind of talent that we are talking about is kind of what is given below. We have part-time workers, we have older workers, we have carers, we have all gig workers. So we have different and varied pool of talent that is available to us. Not many of us in the organizations that we are associated with, even 5 years back, were ready to look at anybody other than what we used to call an FTE, full-time employee, right? Because anything other than FTE was something which was seen as too risky, too unreliable. I don't know whether the person will turn up tomorrow or not. I can't really see how do I track the progress of the task that has been given to that individual, right? Now, because of the pandemic, since everything any which ways has become virtual, we have evolved our work style as well. How do we evaluate performance has changed. How do we track performance has changed, right? How do we know what task to give somebody has changed. How do we even evaluate the skill set the person can do justice to has also changed. So now, when we look at engaging talent, we are talking about engaging talent across the globe. It doesn't really matter where that person is physically sitting, right? So now, if these are the two different realities or the enablers as we talk about, first was the perfect storm. Second is that we've actually broken down the activity or a task into those different jobs. What we are here basically talking about is we have a great opportunity or a great window which will allow us to get into a space where we can leverage automation, we can leverage AI, VR, metaverse, and what have you, as we go ahead. So that was the reality check. Now let's get into how. How do I really go about that now that I know what is available to me? And again, I swear by this quote. You don't need to have the answers. We rarely actually have the answers when we get into the unknown, right? But I think what is important is, do you know what questions you need to ask? Because the answers will probably, or some of the answers, or part of the answers will lie with the person you are interacting with. And when you have the right questions, you come back with having a better idea of how do you want to proceed, right? So it's very, very easy to get mixed up into, I need to know all the answers because that's what is expected of me. I'm supposedly an L&D subject matter expert. But you have to remember that the pace at which things are changing, technology is changing, business reality is changing. It will be very, very unrealistic if you will actually have all the answers or the correct answers. You might have the answers, you don't know whether they're the correct answers. So the crux is, let's get started with asking or framing the questions which will lead to those answers. How many of those answers are correct? Only time will tell, right? But at least get started with asking those questions. Now, as I said, I'll actually talk about some of the things we have done, and hopefully you can take some cue from this and see how does it help you. One of the things that we have done, and this is, I think we've done it for the last about 2 years or so, we've taken a good 2 years to even come to the stage that we are talking about. Just to give you a context, Ericsson has a presence across 140 organizations, 140 countries globally, And we are more than 100,000 people. So that's the scale I'm talking about. With that kind of a scale, and we are a technology organization, we are into telecommunications mainly. Technology is our backbone. We have a presence globally, and we have a huge workforce, which obviously means you have a huge and varied demand for the kind of technologies people need to know. If that is what it is very, very easy to get lost in that sea of requirements that are thrown at you. How do you, as an L&D organization, remain relevant in that scenario? Right? Because what generally happens is that, just to give you a scale, only in India, and I have some of my colleagues here who know it much better, we end up doing close to about 100 to 150 programs a month, only for India. Right? Now, even to catch up processing those needs, which is what is getting to you, and you have to kind of deliver it, is an overwhelming ask. So what I'm trying to here say is that it is so very easy to get lost into an assembly line production. Requirement coming in, somebody processes it, delivers it, you move on to the next one, and you move on to the next one. Where does that then give you time to think, what am I doing? Am I moving in the right direction? Going back to my earlier slide, am I asking the right questions? Forget about getting the answers. Am I even asking the right questions? So what we have tried to do here is that you have to have something which will become your North Star. And for us, what we have done is we have linked learning in Ericsson to strategy. Why strategy? Because that is something which is common across technologies, across geographies, across markets, across businesses, and so on and so forth. And we have tried to break it down. You see that, the semicircle here. We've identified some core areas, basis our strategy to say, obviously for confidentiality reasons, I'm not going to get into the details, but basically what we have done is we have broken these skills into 3 areas. What are technical skills that are required? What are some of the business skill sets which we need our employees to know? And most importantly, going back to what Rohit said in one of the earlier sessions, growth. L&D has to evolve and become, we said, Chief Growth Officer. Even if we're not there today, we have to start walking that path. So you have to have some skills which are relevant for the employee and give them that sense of growing their career. Growing their career today, growing their career tomorrow, which becomes a very good sticking point for them to see a relevance of what is being taught or what is being planned for them from a skill perspective, right? So this is what we have done. I'm just going to share 3 different use cases here so that you get a better idea of what we are talking about here. The first one, mandatory courses, is nothing but the compliance courses, since I'm currently heading this, one of the things here. So what we have tried doing here is, again, the one that you see here, which are colored, I would like you to kind of focus there. So from an automation standpoint, we realized that if you have to roll out something for 100,000 people, it's not easy. You'll have a lot of people who will not like what is being given to them. You will have a lot of people who will have technical challenges because you have multiple browsers and multiple systems people have. So we use bot, we have used very small little things, but I think over a period of about a year from the time we started this journey, if you see the graph up there, the first 3 graphs here, these were the kind of issues that were reported. And the percentage may look very less. 4.8% means nothing. But if you look at the volume, 100,000 people, even if 4% report an issue, you're talking about a sizable number of people there, right? So what we did was, after doing all these things, setting up dashboards and creating those automated notifications and so on and so forth, we managed to get down the number of issues, the percentage of issues reported to less than half, right? Now, I'm not saying what we have done is absolutely world class, but we are kind of on that journey to understand how to work better at it. And this is the dashboard view just to give, any employee as well as the manager, as well as the, business head, they have everything available at a click of a button. They want to see their team statistics, their people, how does it work for a particular course, how does the learning graph look like for my team, because I handle diversity also, so what does the diversity dashboard look like, this is the employee voice, and so on and so forth. So there are various dashboards we've put together. This is a one page that you are seeing. This is not different pictures put together. This is just one slide where an employee as well as a manager can go and get a full view. Of course, they can click on any of these charts and get a much more detailed view of what they would like to look at. So the crux is make it easy, make it simple, make it available where people know where to go and what to pick up therefrom. The other thing that we have, this is just at a very nascent stage, we call it the Learning Studio. Basically, what you see above, it's kind of a virtual space we have created using a lot of VR, AR that we are doing there. We are creating events, we are creating exhibitions, we are creating workshops yet to start, but that's the plan. What we are here doing is, this is the space L&D community worldwide in Ericsson is going to be using or has already started using. This will help all the people within the L&D to talk on a common language. If you are launching a program, you are going to a business with a pitch, now everybody will carry their own decks. Rather than doing that, we have everything hosted here. You can give a demo. You can show them what this is for, what's the purpose, what's the objective, what are they going to learn from it, how are they going to learn it. You leave them with a demo, you give them a link and let them explore it, let them come back and see if that is of interest to them. You can obviously always fine-tune it depending upon what the actual requirement is, but this is a platform which will allow the business, the employees, the L&D team to sit together, explore, fine-tune, customize, so that it becomes that much easier for me to kind of reach out to my stakeholders internally. Last one, what you see here is what we did as part of my diversity portfolio. So we engaged with a vendor and we used behavioral science as the fulcrum to make some changes in how people address various issues related to diversity and inclusion. So what you see here is just an example of the learning journey that we took. So it was a combination of classroom sessions, which is lecture that you see here, lecture 1, lecture 2, so on. And then we had simulations. The simulation was done using the AR technology. So people were given a scenario, they had to walk through that simulation, and the end of the simulation, which was generally about half an hour to 45 minutes, rather than telling them what is right or wrong behavior, they themselves walk through that simulation and come out with learnings. So they do a debrief to say, okay, what did I do, which probably was something I would continue to do, and what are some of the things which I think I need to change. So there are no prescriptive right or wrong answers there. It is just that your own reflection gives you the best answers. And when you do that in a group scenario, so we did it as a one-on-one, we also did it in a group scenario. So when you do it in a group scenario, it's the peer coaching which will help. So that's what we try doing here. And that's all that I would leave you with.